Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral,
Senator.
congratulations on your nomination. I look forward to supporting your nomination.
Thank you.
Depending upon how you answer a couple of questions. No, I look forward to supporting your nomination. I do have, on the Gerald Ford, when you see, I think this project's about 14 years in the making. It's transcended 3 different administrations, endless CRs, sequestration. I'd like to see, back to what Senator Kane was saying, I'd really like to see a root cause analysis of the project from start to finish. And to the extent that our actions in some way affected the movement to the right, I think it's very important for our members to understand that, because with the funding uncertainty, other changes in policy, I've got to believe that when we do the root cause analysis, some of it was clearly mistakes made by people running the project, but it wouldn't surprise me if some of that risk and some of that delay was the result of congressional action or inaction. So I think that'd be very helpful to us so that it's instructive for future actions.
Yes,
Don't necessarily ask you to respond to that now, but I think it would be helpful for us to do that, and I personally would like to see it. I know General Berger was talking about a new fleet design. He's talking about smaller, more lethal, and more risk-worthy platforms. In your opinion, what does that fleet look like? And particularly, I think that he was motivated by his view of what we need to do to match up against China. So what does the new fleet look like to you, and how do you balance that with our very important target of hitting a 355-ship Navy?
Sir, I don't mean to be evasive in this answer, but we have an ongoing force structure assessment that'll give us better insights into that. And I do think that, as I mentioned, with experimentation and wargaming and exercises, that's where we really need to push ourselves. To think about how we operate differently than we operated before. How do we make things fundamentally more difficult for any adversary that we face? And so I think that the willingness to do things that we haven't done before, even at the risk of failure, I think we need to push that envelope. I think we need to learn together, and I think we need to build together in terms of capability. And so I don't have the answers yet. But I think we have a blank slate right now at the Marine Corps in terms of thinking differently about how we want to partner together moving forward.
Thank you. I want to focus on North Carolina a little bit here.
Sure.
I think you're familiar with the damage we sustained out at Camp Lejeune and
Yes, sir.
Actually Cherry Point, New River with the hurricane. Had 3,800 military housing buildings affected. We've got a backlog of about $3.7 billion, I think, at last count. Do you consider it a priority to try and accelerate that recovery down in North Carolina?
Yes, sir, I do.
The FRC East is, we made progress with the lift fan facility. In fact, the state legislature took the unusual step of actually appropriating money and sending it to the Navy to do their part to try and get that facility modernized and lay the groundwork for the lift fan facility. I think you also know that we've received, modified, and returned every variant of the Joint Strike Fighter, the F-35 down there, and I'm sure you've been down there. That is not necessarily a modern facility. It is virtually impossible to do what they need to do in terms of lean processes with the facilities that they have today. Do you agree that we need to make investments in facilities that will actually increase throughput and improve readiness?
Absolutely, sir. Particularly FRC East, they work on a dozen different airframes from rotary all the way to fixed wing, including the F-35. The F-35 is a complex aircraft that's going to require a very nimble, agile, and well-resourced maintenance production line. And so what I owe you, sir, is to take a deeper look at that, get a better understanding of where we are and where we're headed. And I look forward to having open and transparent discussions with you on our progress.
Well, I think it's very important. I think you'll also find that the state legislature, the governor, are prepared to do their part to remove any barriers and the underlying infrastructure in and around Cherry Point to help facilitate that. But I do think it's very important. They move those craft around. It's like they're working a jigsaw puzzle to try and figure out how to wedge them in. And when you're talking about the most sophisticated warfighting plane that's ever flown, I think we need to really step up our priority on modernization of those facilities. Last question that I have really, again, relates back to an issue in North Carolina, but really across the globe, and it relates to military housing. Are you familiar with the military housing issues that we have down at Camp Lejeune?
Not Camp Lejeune specifically, sir, but I am with the housing issues that we've been seeing over the past several months.
I think it is very important for us to focus on really accelerating it. We've made progress. I'm going to be going down to Camp Lejeune, doing a town hall. I'll invite somebody from the Marine Corps and the Navy to be with me, but there's an interesting thing that happens every time I go down there and do a town hall. I usually announce it about 6 weeks before I do it, and there's an amazing drawdown on outstanding service requests before I get down there. I don't know why, but I just want to let the housing vendors know now that I'm going back down to Camp Lejeune in about a month, and I'm down at Fort Bragg, and I'm going to press on this issue, and I would appreciate your help. I look forward to supporting your nomination.
Thank you, sir. It is a priority for me.